statements made before or after that are not on the tape, it may be of some relevance.
I believe he's testified that I said he was under citizen's arrest.
Why are you asking it again?
The question next is going
to... a question that hasn't been asked and answered, please.
Get him to confirm that. Did you submit to the arrest?
Sir, you had no...
Yes, sir.
Did you submit to the arrest?
I object to the characterization of this as being an arrest. The state suggests that it's an aggravated kidnapping and aggravated assault.
Okay, the objection to be sustained. You can ask him about his actions, but not with regard to the question just as stated.
Asking him did he submit is asking him how he reacted.
You can state another question, please.
Is it true that you did not submit to an arrest?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Isn't it true that you never stopped moving around?
I was trying to neutralize the threat, which was try to separate myself from you and Mr. Laxton, because I felt like you were going to shoot us.
Isn't it true that you told officers under video that you backed away and said, "Don't shoot me in the back, I'm backing away"?
No, I turned around and you said, "I will shoot you."
And what did you do then?
I continued to walk away.
Okay, and where did you go?
To the west side of the hangar, northwest side of the hangar.
Okay.
And you followed me.
Isn't it true that I said I will shoot you as you were approaching me with your pistol in your pocket with your hand on your pistol when I told you to stay back? Isn't that what was on the tape?
Sir, I never had my hand in my pocket on my pistol.
Didn't you in fact tell me that you had your hand in your pocket and your pistol was in your pocket?
No, sir. I believe if we rewind a little bit, you'll hear that I never had my right hand in my right pocket at my pistol.
You testified your hand was in your pocket.
I testified that I pulled my left pocket, put my hand in my left pocket and pulled my cell phone to call 911.
You testified your pistol was in your pocket.
Right pocket.
And your hand was in your right pocket. Isn't it a fact your pistol was pointed at me with your hand on your pistol?
No, sir.
You were wearing loose pants that day,
That's a
correct?
lie.
You were wearing loose pants that day, correct?
I was wearing what?
Loose pants, big pockets.
Shorts. I was wearing shorts that day.
They had big pockets.
No, sir.
What gun do you have? What gun did you have that day?
Your Honor, I don't feel that I need to answer that question.
I think it's relevant to determine. He says he's got short pants. If he's got a small gun, if his hand fits in the pocket on the gun he's pointed at me, it lets the jury know that he was a threat to me. Now, obviously,
my gun is not an item. Is not an item of.
Why are you objecting to answering the question? Why are you evasive?
Because the jury has no idea what size my gun is. It's not here.
As soon as you tell them, they'll know.
Your Honor, I object again. This victim is being
Objection to
bashed.
be sustained.
At the time when I confiscated Laxton's rifle, where were you standing?
I was standing on the west side of the hangar looking through the door.
Okay, so you're at the very back end of the hangar.
Yes, sir.
How far away would that be from where the truck was, where the rifle was?
70 feet.
Okay, and you were not detained from going back there, right? You're free to move back there, correct?
No, I was followed back there by you.
I was following you back to the back of the hangar.
Yes, sir. When I turned around and walked away, you said, "I will shoot you," and you followed Mr. Laxton and I around the north side of the hangar to the west side.
It's funny, Mr. Laxton never testified to that. Did you ever hear Mr. Laxton?
No editorial comments, please. The rule's been called for. He was not in the courtroom when another witness testified. No editorial comments, please. Just ask a question of this witness.
So you observed me confiscating Laxton's rifle, is that correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
And then what did I do?
After you took his rifle,
After I confiscated the rifle, yes, what did I do?
you took off out to the field at a pretty good jog.
That's right. Isn't that because you and Mr. Laxton were now behind the hangar pointing your gun at me?
No, sir, that's not correct.
It's not.
No, sir, that's a lie.
And none of what you're saying here today is a lie.
No, sir, I'm here telling the truth.
And all those shots, you weren't concerned for your family in a house they could have been harmed.
No, sir, I was not.
Isn't it true that you removed your gun from your truck and then approached me?
No, sir, that is not true.
But you got your gun, you feel threatened. What were you doing? Why not go away?
Why did you come to me?
Why did you not go away?
Your Honor, that question I know has been asked a dozen times or
Objection,
better.
please sustain.
He's never answered the question. At the scene, you testified that you were armed, correct?
Yes, I was.
Gun was loaded, correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
In your pocket,
In my right pocket.
easy accessed. You're right-handed, correct?
I am right-handed.
Nothing preventing you from pulling your gun, correct? Nothing prevented you from pulling your gun, did it?
Yeah, I didn't want to make this scene any more nasty than it already was.
Engaging yourself into the
No,
scene.
neutralizing the threat is what I was trying to do. I was trying.
You
if
put
listen to
yourself-
the tape, you probably hear me at least 50 times tell you to put your gun down.
What did you do that neutralized anything?
I separated myself from you.
No. You engaged yourself. You come out of the hangar to the scene. That engaged.
Sir, you engaged us.
No.
I did not go to your
I
property.
came down after
You came to
Laxton.
mine.
Your buddy shot at me and killed my
Objection, Your
dog.
Honor.
Objection, be sustained. Ignore the comments by counsel that are not questions directed to the witness, please. When I say counsel, I'm talking about the pro se defendant who's representing himself.
Did you call 911 immediately upon seeing me shooting into the air as you testified?
No, sir.
Or shooting, you don't know which way I shot, up, down, sideways, right?
Your hand was pointed in the upward direction.
But you don't know where I shot.
Already answered that one a couple of times.
When did you call 911?
After you had charged down the hill and pointed your weapon at our heads.
Is that after I told you to stay back? Or is that when I'd confiscated the rifle and was going back?
No, that's as you walked across the driveway and approached us in front of the hangar with a loaded weapon pointed at our head.
Is that when I was looking in the truck?
No, sir.
Okay, at what point was I looking at the truck, looking in the truck?
You were looking when you were going through my truck?
Mm-hmm.
Was at the end of this event?
At the end of the event.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm over here in this truck right here. There's a truck right here.
Oh, there it is?
I'm trying to get you to acknowledge that there's a truck that I'm standing beside, correct?
There's a desk right there.
No kidding. At the scene. At the scene. Describe where I was in relationship to the truck. Was I standing on the passenger side, driver's side?
You were on the passenger side.
Standing facing the truck. Facing the truck.
No, we were at the end of the ramp of the hangar. I can point it out on the map if you'd like. We can even draw a little truck there if you want.
If I'm facing the truck,
You're not,
how was I getting in your truck if I wasn't facing your truck?
you walked up to my truck, opened the door, and reached in and went through my stuff.
And where were you at this time?
I was standing on the west side of the hangar,
At the back of the building.
looking through the door and yelling at you, "You're trespassing in my vehicle."
Okay. And when you're on the phone with 911, isn't it a fact that I told you to tell them that you were under citizen's arrest, that Mike Parsons is effecting a citizen's arrest?
I heard that on the tape, yes, sir.
You don't recall it at the scene?
Oh, you said you were making a citizen arrest after you told us to get down and pointed a gun at us.
Didn't the first thing I said, put your gun down when
Nobody had a gun, sir.
You had a gun.
In my pocket, you had no idea.
You had a gun.
You did not know that I had a gun.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
I saw you put it in your pocket, but we'll testify that later. But okay, so the first thing was put your gun down, correct? First thing you heard.
Nobody had a gun out.
The first thing you heard was put your gun down, correct? Yes or no? Simple question.
Yes, but nobody had a gun.
Okay. The second thing was, where's your gun? Correct?
And who was you?
The question is, where's your gun? Did I say that yes or no?
Who's your?
Did I say that, yes or no?
Yeah, you said, where's your gun? And no
The
one
next
backed
thing
up.
I said was, you're under arrest, citizen's arrest,
Objection.
correct?
This is directed to questions that are on the tape, which has been played and will be again, I'm sure, for the jury. They can hear the tape.
The jury needs to understand
The,
this witness was not detained.
Mr. Parsons, the court sustains an objection. This witness has answered these questions already.
These three questions had never been asked, but nothing further at this time.
Anything else to this witness?
I just got a, Mr. King, what is it like being questioned by the very person that held the gun to your head?
It's very, very hard, very agitating. I feel threatened all over again. My heart's just racing.
That's all.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll break for lunch. During this break, I ask that you please remember the things we've done over, and that is don't discuss the case among yourselves. Allow anyone to discuss it with you. You have a good lunch, and we'll begin again when we get back.
Sir, do we have a time to reconvene for lunch, from lunch?
Don't leave just yet.
Your Honor, at the court's convenience, I'd like to address the court on what was mentioned earlier about the gentleman here who's been assisting Mr. Parsons.
You can call him around. Come around here, sir. I'd like to place you on the oath, please. You, sir. Yes, please. Yes, sir. You'll raise your right hand and take the oath of witness, please.
Take the oath of witness?
Yes, sir. You solemnly swear or affirm testimony you give in this cause to be the truth, so if you got it.
I do.
Have a seat, please.
Your Honor, for the record, I'll object to this because this man is free to be an observer of this case.
Yes, sir, I agree with that.
There is no rule prohibiting him from being a witness and taking notes.
No, sir, that's correct. I agree with that, and if the questions are addressed just to that.
State your name, please.
My name is Bill Boyer,
And how do you spell that last name?
B-O-Y-E-R.
And Mr. Boyer, have you been observing the trial and the testimony of the witnesses as it's been going on today and yesterday?
Yes, I have.
And have been making notations of what witnesses said or testified about?
Well, things that pop up from time to time, that ideas that need to be covered.
Based on what the witnesses have testified about?
Yes.
And have you, after listening to the witnesses and how they testified and these ideas occurred to you, gone out into the hall or anywhere else and discussed this with these ideas with witnesses?
No, I have not.
You have not?
No, I have not.
You have not communicated anything about what's going on with anybody that's outside
No, I haven't.
awaiting possible testimony as a witness?
No, I have not.
And you understand you can't do that?
I understand I can't do that.
All right. And you hadn't done it?
I have not done that.
Okay, that's all.
Mr. Boyer, that alleviates some confusion that may occur later.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Is there anything else we need to take up for the break for lunch?
Your Honor, if at this time I would ask the jury view motion was filed November the 2nd, I believe, and Your Honor said you would take it up during the trial regarding allowing the jury to go out and observe the scene where the incident occurred on 590 Hughes Road. It's beneficial to the jury to see just how flat the land was. It does support the defense claim that the defense was in fear of his life when they were shooting in that direction and bullets were flying past him. That would be the testimony of me, Your Honor, and I think if they had an opportunity to go, they would see the flatness of the terrain, the openness of the terrain, and give them a better understanding of just how much openness it was and the reality of the numbers of houses in the area during this event, all the shooting.
Your Honor, I don't believe there's anything that could come in from a jury view that hadn't come in and has been made available through aerial photographs, extensive direct examination and cross-examination, which asks the same question 20 to 30 times elicited response. So I don't think anything can be gained by a jury view in this matter.
Your Honor, the aerial photograph looks straight down. It doesn't give the perspective of actually looking straight out into the distance. And it will be my testimony when taking the stand that, in fact, the elevation changed from where Mr. Laxton was to where I was standing, relatively short, maybe 4 or 5 feet, substantially less than the 50 feet as was alluded to, which would be a huge hill. And I think the jury would be able to determine then that, in fact, I was in danger when he was shooting in that direction. And it would be the testimony of other people that have been out there, and certainly with the ability for them to view this, it'd be crystal clear in their mind as to the reality of the potential for me to have been hit. And if he's shooting that far, certainly with the limitations of the accuracy of the rifle, he could have raised the rifle very easily and hit me.
Yeah, I'll rule on that later. How many more witnesses does the state anticipate?
The state rest.
Take a break for lunch. When we come back, and we'll proceed to the next stage of the trial. Give it an opportunity to put on proof.
Time?
Yes, sir. About 1:15. It'll take about that long to get here. Yeah, let's do
I'll just get Ms. Mills, Ms. Parsons, we have some other matters I'm going to take up during this lunch.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge.
You might just want to push your books forward.
Oh,
some,
yes, sir.
or move them
Yes,
off
sir.
the table each one.
I won't give that tape to anyone unless it's subpoenaed. Because that is...
Well, I asked you to delete it.
Okay. Well, it's not even here.
Can you delete it?
Well, I'll have to get my secretary. I don't know how to delete. All right, but I mean, I am not computer friendly, so I don't know how to
Or
delete.
will you make sure that you don't give it to anybody else?
I am not going to get it unless somebody subpoenas me, and I'll go
Will you
through.
call her now and tell her to go ahead and delete it now?
Okay. All right.
I wouldn't worry about it right now.
All right,
Well-
but let me say this, Mike. I'm worrying about it because when Walt was standing up there, he said there was we said this and we said that. You remember that? He said, and then there's conversation after he had with his friends and all that. That was not on the tape you gave them, was it?
No.
And I don't want it looking like you're trying to hide something. You only gave them what was incident to the time.
They only wanted what happened at the time. That's what I
Okay.
gave them because
Okay.
he Nessie
right.
told me he didn't want 3 or 4 hours worth of stuff rambling. He said he just wants the facts.
Okay, and so you gave him the facts incident to the alleged happening.
Right.
Everything.
Write that down. I need to clarify that because I'm going to forget all this
That's
stuff.
okay.
guys.
That's all right. That's all right.
Okay, now what is it you want me to write
Struggling
down?
here.
The facts.
The reason I
The
reason I didn't give them all the recordings is because they asked me for only what was germane to the incident.
Okay, the recordings that you have, what did they show? What did they say on them?
Well, the one that he's got that he played was the first part. The second part is when I'm walking down to the officer and I said, here's the gun. I need to report this guy for shooting at me and my wife and killing my dog.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, and what else does it say on it? Is that all?
No, later on it says when we came back looking for the dog, you can hear the officer say, I found her, she's over here. And then you hear somebody 4 seconds later say, oh, it's a possum.
Well, where was the dog found?
She was right where the officer was when we got back. When I got out of jail, my wife and I and my dad went down there, and she's right there.
She'd been there for how many days?
3 days. What? 3 days.
And she'd been eaten out by then? Or
She'd been picked on by buzzards.
did you take any pictures of the dog?
Mm-hmm.
You did? Okay.
Pretty graphic.
Do you have the pictures?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you tell where the blood is on the dog? Is it on the back?
Yeah, see, the bullet holes are in the back. And of course, I testified at the probable cause hearing the bullets were in the back.
Mm-hmm.
The wounds were all in the back.
Could you tell what the direction of entry was?
They're all in the back. I need to call these witnesses to get them on down here.
Okay.
Yeah. Could
Your
you?
wife wants us to have the order of witnesses so she can tell them.
Yeah. Now, who else is going to testify for you this afternoon?
Pat,
Your mom, your wife,
my dad,
your dad. Okay. And how about the vet?
the veterinarian.
He knows to come back this afternoon?
I've got to call him. The state medical examiner. I'll call her. Oh, she's not here.
Where is she?
Well, how do I get on the record her report?
Ask them if they'll stipulate to the report that the medical pathologist, okay, prepared in preparation of this case in chief.
Then I'm going to call the private investigator, and I'm going to call.
What are you going to ask him to testify to?
He heard you can't tell action. All you got to do is clap your hands, and they'll run away.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Clark just came up to me and told me that I needed to ask him, to check the jury. I don't know what that means.
Check the jury?
What does that mean?
I have no idea. He didn't mention that to me. But I mean, where is it?
Was he talking about a background check or something?
I don't know what he's talking about. I don't want to call
I'll
him.
ask him.
Yeah, okay. All right. And then Mr. Anderson.
Anderson.
Okay, but let's.
Sean Anderson.
Yeah.
Matt.
Okay, so how soon can you get a hold of these guys? Have them over here.
Call them right now.
Okay. I would certainly have them over here because.
Your Honor, at this time I make a motion for acquittal, and I would cite in this motion that the elements of the alleged crimes have not been met. In the charge of aggravated kidnapping, TPI 8.02, Part E, that the defendant removed or confined another unlawfully so as to interfere substantially with others' liberty. The testimony has not supported that they were ever removed, and because they have both identified that they were informed they were under a citizen's arrest and that they did not submit to said citizen's arrest, there was no substantial interference with their liberty. In fact, they testified they spoke on the cell phone, walked around, walked away. In the audio recording, you can even hear them moving about freely. And at this time, the charge of aggravated kidnapping is not supported. Also, there's an element, 8.02, that the defendant acted knowingly. And the fact is that through the recording and their own statements, they acknowledge that I informed them they were under a citizen's arrest. And the fact is that in the process making a citizen's arrest, they have an obligation to submit. And then it's later for a jury or a judge or law enforcement to determine if the arrest was proper, but that is not before this court. What's before this court is, were these people kidnapped? Does the elements meet aggravated kidnap when in fact they knew that they were being instructed, that they were under citizen's arrest, and the elements showed that they did not submit to this citizen's arrest. They testified that the defendant intentionally and knowingly caused bodily injury to another for aggravated assault. There's never been a claim of bodily injury. That the defendant intentionally or knowingly caused another to reasonably fear imminent body injury. Well, the fact is, Mr. King testified he had a gun on him. He put himself into the situation. He saw me with a gun, and he put himself into that situation. He intentionally came towards me. In the same token, Mr. Laxton was armed. Mr. Laxton testified he was armed, that he shot, claimed he didn't see me, but in fact he lined up the push pins. If you may I approach, Your Honor?
Just with your argument, please.
With the push pins, if you simply look at the pins where he was, where Brandy was, where I was, you'll see that they're directly lined up. He's proven the fact that while he's shooting at my dog, he's shooting at me. I have a right and a duty and an obligation to defend myself and effect a citizen's arrest if I, in fact, witness felonies in my presence. Mr. Laxton shooting at me would be aggravated assault. Mr. Laxton shooting in the vicinity in the direction of my wife would be reckless endangerment. Mr. Laxton shooting at my dog, which he in his mind, and so did King, believed to be a wolf, is a felony in the state of Tennessee. For it's a felony to knowingly kill a wolf, and under mens rea, if you do an act which you think is a violation of law, you have committed that violation. Even if the dog is not a full-blooded wolf, if he thought it was and proceeded to try to kill it, that is a felony. I'd witnessed felonies in my presence. The issue of burglary. In that matter, I was in the process of securing the scene, confiscating weapons that had been used to attack me and my family. In picking up and confiscating the rifle, I was able to prevent Mr. Laxton from continuing to shoot at me with that rifle. Under the elements of burglary, section 14.01 part D, that the defendant entered any freight or passenger car, automobile, truck, trailer, boat, airplane, or other motor vehicle, and that the defendant entered with the intent to commit, attempts to commit a felony, theft, and assault, including that the elements of the alleged crime. And also, that's not proven. And the charge of theft also has an element under TPI crime 11.01, theft of property, that the defendant knowingly obtained or executed control over property, that the defendant did not have the owner's effective consent, and that the defendant intended to deprive the owner of the property. The only intent was to prevent him from shooting me and my family. The property, as testified by the officer, Officer Walls, that he immediately was given the rifle upon my meeting him. There was no delay. Immediately he was given the rifle. So Mr. Laxton was not deprived of his property. He was only prevented from using it to further do damage to me or my family. Your Honor, at this time, I would move for an acquittal of all charges.
Your Honor, we believe a jury question has been raised on all issues.
Request for judgment of acquittal be denied. The court feels like there's an issue for resolution by the jury.
Yes.
Ready to proceed.
Laxton on the first page. Who is that? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get that. The first witness, Your Honor, would be Dr. LaBelle, Dr. Charles LaBelle.
I was informed the first witness to be Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, you'll have to remain outside until you're called to testify.
Your Honor, also,
Charles LaBelle.
Your Honor, there's a Dr. Charles LaBelle. I understand he's a veterinarian. Since he's obviously not a fact witness, I assume he's being offered as an expert witness. I filed a motion for reciprocal discovery, didn't receive either a name of the Dr. LaBelle, much or a report or anything from Dr. LaBelle. I have no idea, other than I talked to him briefly the other day. He called the office and found out he's a veterinarian.
Not listed in the room.
But I've received no reciprocal discovery in this regard.
If the defendant has a written report, you have to give it to the state, please. Supposed to have already done it.
The witness was listed in the file. He was listed as an expert. He was subpoenaed, and that's also in the record. The prosecution has long known that Dr. LaBelle was going to be here.
If you have a written report, you have to give it to the state, please.
Sir?
He doesn't have a written report, does he? Is he going to bring in the review records and all that?
There's no written report. He's just got the records of his evaluation of Brandy.
Your Honor, assuming Brandy...
Discovery, when the state requests for an expert under the rules of discovery, that's supposed to be turned over to the state pursuant to the rules of discovery.
That information was provided to Ms. Mills from day one, Your Honor, and it's been available.
She's not with the state, she's with you, Mr. Parsons.
The court appointed Ms. Mills, and Ms. Mills had in the information that she received from Mike Robbins a copy of the doctor's evaluation from when he examined Brandy.
If you would, please just do what I requested and give it to the state.
Give a copy to the state. It's in my...
Okay, this one here.
All right.
Your Honor, I've been handed two. They're not exactly reports, but they're two letters from Dr. Charles LaBelle. One of them addressed to whom it may concern. It just says Mr. Parsons takes care of his animals, specifically his wolf hybrids. So I would obviously object to anything of that as to any relevance. And there's another report which indicates that, and I wondered about this, but apparently the animal's name is Brandy Parsons. But that on examination of Brandy Parsons, there'd been severe decomposition. No wounds were seen. I don't even know if there was a face, neck, front legs, or chest because of the severe decomposition. But that there were no bullet fragments in the chest and neck, but some seen in the vertebra. And now, what that has got to do, assuming Dr. LaBelle is qualified to testify that the only bullet fragments he saw in the decomposed body, which had been apparently ravaged by coyotes or wolves, according to his telephone call to me.
Objection calls for speculation.
Speculation of Dr. LaBelle.
Speculation of your assertion of how Brandy was decomposed.
In any event, apparently there'll be some testimony, or could be, bullet fragments were found in the spine. What that has to do with the aggravated kidnapping of Nick King, Barry Laxton, the theft of a gun, the theft of a holster, or the burglary of a truck, or the aggravated assault of Mr. King and Mr. Laxton, I have no idea. So I would suggest that is a relevance issue, Your Honor.
The state hasn't had an opportunity to review the report. The court will allow the witness to testify. If you'll ask him to come in, please. The jury is ready to ask the jury to come in, please. In the state arrested this case, the defendant's given an opportunity to present evidence. You raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear or affirm testimony you give in this cause to be the truth, so help you God. I do. Please.
Good afternoon, Dr. LaBelle.
Afternoon.
State for the record your name.
I'm Dr. Charles LaBelle.
And what is your area of expertise, your practice?
I'm a veterinarian in Bartlett, Tennessee. I own family veterinary practice.
And how long have you been with that practice?
Since I graduated 4 years ago, and I've owned it for 2 years.
Okay, and did you work there prior to purchasing it?
Yes, sir, for 2 years before I purchased.
Who was the previous owner?
Dr. Bonder.
Also a veterinarian?
That's true.
So working with this veterinarian medical center and now owning it, you have an opportunity to review the files and be familiar with people that frequent the services of this clinic. Is that correct?
Very familiar. I've seen all his clients, and I'm very familiar with every one of them.
And are you aware of the different animals that are taken care of at this clinic?
Yes, sir.
Would you describe as just cats and dogs, or are there?
We primarily do cats and dogs, some ferrets and rabbits.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to do work for myself, Mike Parsons, through the time that you've been there?
Yes, I've treated your dogs many times, Mike.
And in the records, is it true that there have been, for a long history, that we've been bringing dogs and cats to this location for care?
Since Dr. Bonner has been in the practice, he has been coming, which has been about 12 years, and very long history.
What is your experience with our animals as far as their demeanor? Are they aggressive? Are they friendly? Are
Your
they?
Honor, objection as to relevance.
Objection to be sustained.
Would you testify as to the level of care given to the animals?
Objection as to relevance.
Objection to be sustained.
Did you examine Brandy Parsons on September 27th, 2007?
Yes, sir, I did.
Your Honor, I'm going to object as to the relevance of this. I don't know a person by the name of Brandy Parsons that has any relevance to this lawsuit.
Our dog, the dog that was murdered.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. If I may hand you up a couple of documents. Would you please identify if those are your signatures on those documents?
Yes, they are.
Is there one longer one that's to whom it may concern?
Yes.
Could you read that
Not
document, please?
subject to the relevance of his reading what is irrelevant if he testifies about, which is the care of the dogs.
Objection has to be sustained. The proper way is just to ask a question. You can get the same information in by asking questions. Let him respond to your questions, please. You have to ask him questions. He can't just read off of the document.
Is it a fact that we always seek out the best level of care for our animals?
Same objection as
Objection to be
relevant.
sustained.
When it comes to my dogs, and of course, in your experience, what types of dogs have you seen us bring in through the years?
Mainly hybrids of all species.
Objection as to relevance, dogs brought in through the years to the veterinary, Your
The
Honor.
court will allow that question and answer.
Have we ever brought in any other types of dogs?
Not that I can recollect.
Huskies, Malamutes, German Shepherd?
Mixes of those.
Okay. Some dogs that were rescued that we just found and brought into.
I believe so.
When it comes to the wolf hybrids, has there ever been a time where any of them have attempted to bite you or a member of your staff?
Yeah, objection as to relevance.
Objection to be sustained.
I was just trying to support the fact that these are not vicious animals, Your Honor. It's been alleged that Brandy was trying to go after somebody.
Parsons, if you would just direct your questions to the witness, all I can do is rule on the objections with regard to what's permissible under the rules of evidence, please.
Can you tell us anything about our pets?
Objection as to relevance as to his pets, Your Honor.
It's relevant to the nature of the animals.
Now, he could.
There's an assertion that these animals are somehow vicious, and the evidence would show otherwise if my witness is able to testify to his personal experience with these dogs. We're not talking about somebody else's dog, we're talking about my dogs, and that's what the prosecution is trying to demonize, are my dogs, and I have a witness here ready to
I object
testify.
to the characterization of demonizing, and the state has never asserted that anything as to any of the wolves that Mr. Parsons has. The only testimony has been that a wolf charged an individual. Whether he was vicious or whether he was coming to lick his face doesn't matter. It's the person shooting at the dog's state of mind. This man cannot testify as to Barry Laxton's state of mind when he was being charged by a wolf.
The question is asked about your dogs that were brought in. The court sustains the objection with regard to that question.
Can you tell the court about wolf hybrids? Do they have a propensity to violence in general?
That would be the same objection as to the propensity of a breed. This man doesn't know unless he's an eyewitness I don't know about to this event, and can offer no relevant testimony as to what the animal did on that day to Barry Laxton.
Objection being sustained with regard to questions about the breed.
Dr. LaBelle, on the 27th, you testified that you examined, of 27th of 2007, you examined Brandy.
That's correct.
And did you take x-rays of Brandy at that time?
I did.
May I present these this time to the witness for identification? This is very contradictory. Supports this. Can you tell us if those are x-rays that that you took during the examination?
They are.
And can you tell us, were you able to identify any fragments?
No obvious bullets or fragments were seen. There were some shards of metal around the spine.
I'm going to object on a couple of grounds. One is that there's been no linking of whatever dog or canine or wolf or lupus or possum it is that's been examined. There's been no foundation laid that it's the same animal that's shot by Mr. Laxton. That'd be my first objection. And my second objection is, it doesn't matter if he was shot once, twice, 30 times in the head, in the tail, or in the gut, as far as whether Barry Laxton or Nick King are victims of aggravated kidnapping, aggravated assault, and burglary of a vehicle. So our objection is to the relevance of the cause of death, or the manner of death, or the infliction of the wounds. We will stipulate that Barry Laxton shot the wolf dead, and we think anything else is irrelevant.
The court overrules the objection to the extent that the court allows the question last asked of the doctor and his response to that question.
Could you repeat that question?
You've already answered.
Okay.
Ask another question, please.
And during the course of this evaluation, did you have communication with the state medical examiner in Nashville, Tennessee?
I was surprised they were working on the case.
Did they fax you any information regarding, because did you provide the x-rays for that medical lab? Did you take these x-rays specifically so that they could be taken with Brandy up to Nashville for that?
I did recommend that she be referred up to the lab.
Okay. And in your correspondence, Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to object on the hearsay grounds to anything communicated to them by somebody else.
This is the state's pathology report. The state's already stipulated they would accept, in fact, that the doctor's not here.
I didn't stipulate anything of the sort. I have stipulated all along that the wolf was shot dead by Barry Laxton. Anything else is irrelevant, and we object to hearsay.
As a result of seeing the report, what is your opinion about the manner in which Brandy was killed?
I'm going to object on hearsay grounds if his opinion is based on something he saw from somebody else.
He's a professional, and he's evaluated the dog, and he's consulted with another professional doctor that's a state.
Why don't you ask some of those questions?
You have a record of Brandy Parsons available today?
Yes, sir.
Was Brandy up on her rabies shots?
I don't have the
Is there anything else you can tell us about Brandy in your? You know how old Brandy, do you know how old Brandy was?
Yes. She was born in 2004.
Okay.
The record says X-ray reveals small bullet fragments near spine, no obvious wounds to the skull, face, and chest area. Most of the body was decomposed and dragged away by scavengers. No obvious cause of death was found, and recommended referral to state lab.
Could you repeat that slower, please, from the very beginning?
X-ray reveals small bullet fragments near spine, very small. No obvious wounds to skull, face, or chest. Most of the body was decomposed and dragged away by scavengers. No obvious cause of death. On the X-ray, recommend necropsy at the state lab.
So your testimony was there were no bullet wounds to the face, chest, front area.
That's correct.
And if a person's got a dog charging up there shooting, the dog would probably be shot.
Objection be sustained.
Did you consult with a Dr. Tina Fisher with the Cord Medical Institute in Nashville regarding Brandy's killing?
No, I never personally consulted with her.
Did you consult with anybody with the Cord Medical Institute via fax or phone or transmission?
I did receive a report, but never consulted.
Would you concur with the findings of that report?
I concur.
Nothing further. One second. Is it basically the same as your report, their findings?
It is about the same.
Could you describe where in the spine the fragments were found?
Fragments were found in the L2 area, which is slightly behind your last rib,
Towards the back of...
towards the back of the gun.
Is there anything else you can tell us about Brandy as far as her size and weight, to give us a description of her physical presence? Was she a large dog?
She was around a 65-pound dog. A medium-sized to a large-sized dog.
You know what a possum is, correct? Would you say that it would be easy for somebody to mistake Brandy and a possum if they saw them laying on the ground?
No, it would be extremely difficult.
Thank you. Nothing further at this time.
Michael Bell. Dr. LaBelle, you have testified that Brandy was about 4 years of age at the time of death.
Correct.
And otherwise good health.
That's correct.
Weighed 65 pounds. Was a wolf hybrid.
That's correct.
And is there a percentage on wolf hybrids? That is there a way to determine if Brandy was half dog and half wolf, or is it a high percentage hybrid?
There are genetic tests out there that could associate that. But normally we consider any dog with any kind of wolf to be a wolf hybrid.
Well, if the dogs, wolves, whatever they are, advertised for sale as high percentage hybrid wolves.
Objection, Your Honor. It has nothing to do with this case.
That's what I say.
Objection be sustained.
But this was a 65-pound wolf hybrid in otherwise good health.
That's correct.
Presented to you in a decomposed state with most of its body missing.
That's correct.
And what part of the body was missing?
Mainly the abdominal area, intestinal organs, and into the chest area.
And most of the chest and the stomach was gone.
That's
Correct? So obviously you couldn't detect any bullet fragments in the area that you didn't have.
That's correct.
And besides decomposition, you have testified that scavengers, what you described as scavengers, had apparently degraded the body, or whatever you would call that. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was actually pulled away. You know, intestines just kind of slowly decompose with time, and so you can still evaluate it for bullets or things like that. But if they're dragged away and eaten, then there's not much we can do.
Well, scavengers like what would drag away a 65-pound wolf hybrid?
You know, cats can do it, foxes can do it, other dogs, coyotes.
Wolves?
Wolves. There's not very many wolves in this area, but possibly.
Well, there are a lot of wolves in the area of Mr. Parsons' house, aren't there?
Objection, Your Honor. There's no way the witness would know of any full-blooded wild wolves in the
I'm
vicinity.
not asking about full-blooded wild wolves. I'm asking about your knowledge of how many wolf hybrids Mike Parsons
Objection, Your
has
Honor,
in
is
the house.
irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the condition of Brandy. Has nothing to do with this charge.
Most of the body, however, was missing and is unavailable for your analysis, correct?
That's correct, although the head and chest area were there.
Thought you said some of the chest area was missing.
Well, the front of the chest was still intact, because mainly that's skin and then bone underneath.
Okay. So a decomposed or an animal in the state of decomposition with some of the chest and the abdominal area removed, and the other subject to some sort of, what is the veterinarian word for when scavengers tear dead animal apart?
A really good word, scavenged.
Okay. That's all.
Anything else this week?
Would it be possible that the removal of the stomach and the intestines, the good stuff as the buzzards would probably call it, would it be possible that buzzards could have pecked at her and also pulled at her, because the big buzzards,
That's very possible.
seen them on the side of the road pulling a deer along. Is there any knowledge of yours that there are true wild wolves running around in West Tennessee?
Objection is irrelevant,
You
John.
brought it up,
Objection is sustained.
but we do have cougars and we do have coyote, correct?
We have lots of coyotes,
Foxes
lots of foxes, yes, sir.
and wild dogs.
And
People turn their dogs loose and they go back to nature.
we have a tremendous amount of dogs.
Again, you've already testified to this basically, but again, I would ask, is
Your
there...
Honor, again, he's asked, and I suggest that it's been asked and answered.
Objection is sustained.
With the metal fragments that were found, would that be possible for the dog to live with these fragments where they were found? Or would this be an indication that this is likely the cause of death?
I don't believe it was a cause of death, no. So it probably wouldn't have done enough damage to do that.
Where the fragments were found?
Right.
Okay, so it didn't sever the spine or...
No, the fragment wasn't large enough to do that or in the right area.
Okay. And it wasn't possible to identify if the fragment was a bullet fragment from a .22 rifle?
I'm not a
Right.
pathologist that could determine that.
Nothing further at this time.
Dr. LaBelle,
Yes.
it's your testimony that the fatal fragments, the bullets that killed this wolf hybrid, you couldn't even locate, correct?
I could not. It was probably in the abdomen.
Probably in the stomach.
Right.
Thank you, sir. We go back to this. Thank you.
One last question. Is it possible that bullets might have entered and exited the dog, causing a fatal wound?
That is possible.
Okay. Nothing further.
We go back to business. Thank you, sir. Call your next witness, please.
I'd like to call Mr. Sean Anderson, the
I can take this for
Tipton County Government Information System.
Right hand, please, sir. Solemnly swear I affirm the testimony you give this knowledge to be the truth, so help you God. Do proceed, please.
State your name for the record, sir.
My name is Sean Anderson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Anderson. Could you state where you work
I work for Tipton County Government, the GIS Department.
and what is your position there?
I am the Geographic Information Systems Director
How long have you been with this office?
since August of 2004.
And what does this job entail?
As Director, I am responsible for the 12 member board that we have here in Tipton County, made up of municipalities, utility districts, and some county departments. Some of my responsibilities include data creation, data maintenance, data warehousing, distribution, community education, and member development, and to continue to maintain the GIS system data for the county.
In order to do your job, did you have any special training?
Yes, sir. I've got a Bachelor's of Science degree from Austin Peay State University in Environmental Geography. I also have a Master's of Science from the